I have a Twitter, so if you hate me as much as I hate me, you should follow it. So I took a break from the very important business of writing about the material implications of terrible anime to write about something far less important: electoral politics. I, for one, would at least like it if the version of late capitalist hell I was living in also had free healthcare, so I'm obligated to care about the two circuses in the trench coat the US calls a political system, at least a little bit. A week ago in Virginia, Bernie Sanders and Michael Bloomberg were tied for first place, polling at around 20%. Sanders led the rest of the field in Texas and California by double digits. He had a lead in Massachusetts and in the states he'd won against Hillary Clinton in 2016, like Oklahoma and Minnesota. On Super Tuesday, Joe Biden won 50% of the vote in Virginia. Joe Biden won Texas. Joe Biden won Massachusetts. Joe Biden won Oklahoma. Joe Biden won Minnesota. The running theory of politics in the United States, one that the Sanders campaign was banking on, was that higher voter turnout translates to a further swing to the left. The idea is the working class are already attracted to progressives, as this wing of the Democratic Party most represents their own interests. All we needed to do was get them out to vote, right? In Virginia, voter turnout was incredibly high, higher than in 2016, and all those extra voters came out to vote for Joe Biden. Numerically and around the country, the size of Bernie's effective base that's coming out to vote for him is shrinking. The exit polls show us that not only was healthcare the number one issue among voters in Virginia, but that a clear majority favor Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All over keeping private insurance. To be clear, not only did Bernie Sanders lose poor working class voters to a candidate with 60 billionaire donors, not only did Bernie Sanders, someone who literally marched on Washington with Martin Luther King Jr., lose working class black voters to a candidate that opposed desegregated busing, not only did Joe Biden lose the female vote to, well, whatever this is.
Vice President Biden, the Me Too movement has forced a cultural reckoning around the issue of sexual violence.
And so we have to just change the culture, period, and keep punching at it and punching at it and punching.
Bernie Sanders lost to Joe Biden among voters who agree with Bernie on the most important issue to them. With Michael Bloomberg out of the race and endorsing Biden, the reactionary bourgeois wing of the party is mobilized, well-funded, well-organized, and excited about their candidate. Sanders' coalition is a bunch of 20 to 30-year-olds who don't actually turn out to the ballot when it matters. And exit polls show that people like Sanders' ideas more than they think he can actually win the election. Oh, and the best part, despite the stock market's recent freefall and instability, Biden's success has pushed healthcare stocks back up. So, capitalism. I'm not a doomer or whatever the fuck left Twitter is saying now, but to describe the results of Super Tuesday as anything other than an unmitigated disaster would be an outright delusion. This is pretty close to the worst case scenario for progressives and leftists alike. Bernie Sanders is, of course, not out of the race yet, but Super Tuesday shows that Joe Biden has revived the Obama coalition in a way that not even Hillary Clinton could in 2016. A coalition of working class white and black voters, which skews a little older but is dead set on heading to the polls. An inclusive, moderate front which appreciates the aesthetics of hope and change, but also wants so-called realistic policies they feel can actually get passed. So I'm going to stand on my soapbox, as short and unimpressive as it is, to shout into the void of the internet to anyone who happens to hear this. This movement, or whatever, it's not fucking working. And where it is working, it's not good enough. Call him Bernie Bros, call him the dirtbag left, call him Chapo-style leftist, I really don't care. Each one of these terms is loaded in their own way. They're vague, inaccurate, and a lot of them are definitely just used by centrist liberals to smear the Sanders campaign as a whole. What I'm trying to describe here, though, is a specific kind of very online leftist who is definitely white and definitely young and sees electing Bernie Sanders as the most important moral choice of our generation, who has sunk their identity, energy, and praxis into supporting Bernie Sanders, and who will viscerally and personally attack anyone and anything seen as an obstacle in Sanders' path. This group of people are a minority of Sanders' base. Sanders' coalition is diverse and not nearly as vitriolic as the media would like us to believe. Nonetheless, it's this group of people who are at the core of Sanders' base. Sanders' popularity radiates outwards from this mostly young and white group of voters. These were Sanders' early adopters. These are the people running get out to vote campaigns. These are the people canvassing. These are the people the media focuses on. These are the content creators we follow on YouTube and Twitch and Twitter. And I'm sorry, I really am, but y'all suck at your jobs. You can sling shit at the DNC and Warren all you want, but if the movement was anywhere near as effective as it needed to be in winning any of the demographics Bernie needed to do well here, the results would have been different. It's painfully obvious that a sizable chunk of the online left has never actually talked to people of color. You don't know how to talk to progressives who disagree with you, let alone moderates or conservatives. The dirtbag left and the rejection of respectability politics was and remains important. Chapo Trap House popularized the realization that civility and electability are just establishment tools used to dismiss the voices of those of us who want actual systemic change. We, of course, don't need to let ourselves fall prey to this idea that the only way to win is to be nice and cozy to all the people who are screwing everyone over. But what's going on in the online left right now isn't a strategic rejection of respectability politics. It's not harnessing the perceived tell it like it is honesty of Donald Trump. It's not creating leftist change. It's an unproductive cult of personality around Bernie Sanders personally that, at best, fails to make the right arguments to the right voters and, at worst, drives away voters entirely. A cult of personality around an individual is literally the opposite of what the left is about. Oh, okay, I forgot about tankies. So anyway, other than red fascists, a cult of personality around an individual is literally the opposite of what the left is about. We need direct action. We need collective action. You want to know the truth? Yes, people like socialism more than capitalism, but half of these people think that socialism is raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Doesn't help that Bernie has literally said the words, "My socialism is raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour." Not only do people not care about politics, people don't want to care about politics. They actively want politics to go away. It's the same knee-jerk reaction to people wanting politics out of their video games and their anime. They complain about their city jobs and their low wages and rent and health insurance premiums, but they outright refuse to believe that a change in the political system will fix it. We're all taught from birth to be individualists, after all. Most people think about fixing their own problems, not the system that causes them. Politics is stressful and upsetting. People are sick of Donald Trump. People are sick of Bernie Sanders. They're sick of CNN and Fox News and MSNBC. They're sick of their friends ranting about Bernie on Twitter. And if a vote for Joe Biden means that politics will go back to normal, if it means that politics will finally stop mattering again, if it means that political discourse can finally go away, people will gladly take that option. People don't vote for the candidate who matches them on policy. People don't know what policies they support. They don't know the differences between policies and candidates. Black voters especially do not trust the government to make good on their promises because why would they? The US government has waged a protracted war against black people in its own borders since its fucking inception. People want someone they like and someone they can trust. They don't care about who's the most left-wing candidate in the race. These are real people you have to understand and speak to win. That's the kind of person we need to be making the argument to, not all three dumbass Warren stands on Twitter. None of these people are on Twitter, actually. It's concerning that a good number of prominent online leftists are so far up their own self-created echo chambers that they cannot even imagine why Joe Biden appeals to black people. How can you claim to represent the interests of minorities if you won't even bother figuring out why many of them think the way they do? This kind of white-centric, Bernie-obsessed, online-only leftism needs to fucking end. If the online right can organize harassment campaigns against journalists, flyer campaigns that bring shit like, "it's okay to be white," into the public consciousness, and peddle memes that radicalize people to Donald Trump and beyond, don't fucking tell me that the left can't do some of the same stuff. Where are our efforts to connect with people offline? Where are our flyers? Where's our propaganda? Where are our efforts to convince people, first, that politics is something that they should care about, and second, that the left has the solutions to the world's most pressing issues? Instead, all we have is BreadTube, which at this point I hope we all realize is like 10 vaguely progressive friends on Twitter who happen to all be content creators and not an actual organized movement capable of praxis. I'm not saying direct action is an easy thing to do. It's hard. I mean, of course, help. I've been meaning to actually go out and join some orgs myself, but it's not like that information is easy to find, and it's not like it's easy to make time to volunteer, and it's not like it's easy to get the money to donate, but that doesn't mean the left more generally can't be focused on that. Instead, it's been putting all its eggs into Bernie Sanders, and now we act surprised that not everyone agrees with us. That maybe social democracy is already a step too far for most people, let alone anarchism or left communism or Leninism or fucking Possadism. That maybe screaming at moderates to defend Cuba from liberal revisionism and bourgeois imperialist propaganda actually just makes you look like a crazy person, even if you're right. That maybe our opponent isn't a senile old man who no one likes, but a well-respected and popular politician who has a ton of people and dark money on his side. We can't be surprised when Twitter turns out not to be reality.